Hey there, dive buddies, and welcome to the show. A little over 3 years ago, I interviewed Andre Borell, director of Envoy Shark Cull, a hard-hitting documentary highlighting the archaic shark mitigation systems employed by the Australian government throughout Queensland and New South Wales. The doco, narrated by Eric Banna, was initially aired exclusively on Stan, and 3 years down the line has a much greater global audience through many other popular media streams, including Netflix. During today's episode, I grab an update from Andre and an excellent insight into his latest project, the Shark Stop wetsuit. Now in its second round of funding, the Shark Stop wetsuits were originally designed by surfer Haydon Burford, whose desire was to find a wetsuit similar to the impact protection for motorcyclists via Kevlar. Through his research and development, he created what we see now as the bite-resistant wetsuit Shark Stop. Tested by Flinders University on board the Rodney Fox vessel, Andre shares the impressive results and findings, so join me as we delve deeper into the creation, those results, the progress of the business, and the opportunities available for investors seeking to make a change. Please enjoy.
Welcome to the Scuba Goat Podcast with Matt Waters. Let's dive right in.
Second time lucky, yeah. How does the other fella look? I can see you now.
It's nasty, hey. It looks so bad. Yeah, it was so weird. For like the first week after I had this cut out, it was fine. Like no bruising, no swelling, nothing. Now all of a sudden it's gone. It wants to swell and it's pooling around my eye. And oh my God, yeah, I look like I've just had a UFC title fight, to be honest. But yeah, it is what it is. I apologize.
Yeah, it'll sort itself out, I suppose, and just keep it nice and clean and take your time on it, bro.
I got to go into town tomorrow to have the stitches out, and then I'm assuming I'm going to need some antibiotics for this swelling. I don't know, but I'm going to duck to the pharmacy and get that cream that you recommended as well. So, yeah,
it works a treat, man. I mean, what am I now? 9-10 days after surgery, and it's all almost healed up. You know, it's covered over, and I don't have any kind of restriction of movement anymore. So
yeah, I don't know why this has been like this. Maybe because I slept on it. I don't know. I think face is a bit of a weird one. They did warn me. They're like, face can bruise weird, heal weird. Like it's just a tricky spot.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
I got hit by a car years ago, and cut all the top of my eye open, but maybe 2.5-3 inches long.
Whoa.
And, and I was much the same as you. Felt like I'd been in a UFC title fight, but it took maybe a year for the repair to occur, and I think the face is just a place that takes so long because it's so delicate. You know, even the dudes that stand in the ring and beat the shit out of each other, they're still going to get cut up, and it takes time for all the material underneath to heal as well.
Yeah, it makes me, before I wasn't too fussed, like whether they got it all or not. When it happened, I was like, if I got to come back and get more cut out, so be it. Now I'm like, please have got it all. I don't want to do this. Yeah. I don't want to do this again a second time because we missed a bit. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, well, fingers crossed for you, brother. All right, round 2. Ding, ding. Let's have a little catch up from the last time you were on the show, which was probably 3 years ago now, I think, isn't it? When did Envoy Shark Cull come out?
It came out coming up for 4 years ago, to be honest. So yeah, probably 3.5 years ago or something like that. Yeah, time flies. It honestly feels like a year ago or something. But yeah, I'd say it must have been about 3.5 years or something like that since we last spoke. Yeah. Or in this format.
I think in this format, yeah. I think that was the we did the podcast as the movie was coming out, the doco was coming out. Okay, so why don't we have a little bit of a catch-up on how things are once the doco came out? What was the fallout or the reaction?
Yeah, sure. How long have you got? No, I'll try and keep it snappy. And give you the short version. So it did pretty well in terms of like awards and things like that. It ended up on some good streaming platforms in the UK and the US. It was on Discovery Plus, which is their streaming platform. It's now merged with Max, which is HBO Max, because it's some merger that happened. I forget now off the top of my head who merged. Then in Australia, it was on Stan. Now that Stan's exclusivity is over, it's also on Netflix here, which is really cool. So got out to important. The rest of the world, it's kind of on Amazon Prime Video where you can rent it, iTunes where you can rent it, that kind of thing. So it kind of got out there, got everywhere. We got a lot of positive feedback to it, but we didn't make it for awards, and we didn't make it for positive feedback. We made it to sort of spark change. Was actually what I wanted to achieve from it. And that is sort of happening, but sort of not. So there's definitely more public support for the movement to modernise these shark culling programs in New South Wales and Queensland. There's definitely more opposition to them. There's definitely, you can see a shift, but politicians are far more stubborn, risk-averse, perceived risk-averse in terms of making changes, and slow-moving than I anticipated. So 3.5 years later, there's a lot of momentum behind it, but actual tangible changes, we've only seen little baby steps, which is kind of disappointing. But I feel it coming. I think we're almost at a point where these programs cannot continue as they are, and we will, see them, the culling parts of these programs end, and instead focus on modern solutions that actually keep people safe from sharks, rather than a placebo effect. And the programs will move into the 21st century. I hope. I think.
Yeah. When's the just for people that are outside Australia, the way that the local governments are run here is that the seats are held for 4 years, I believe it is, and they have to be re-elected. So that would lead nicely into my next question of, is there change coming? Are we due? I'm not massively au fait on the political front, but are we due a shuffle at all that would maybe spark some more interest of people trying to get their foot in the door politically?
Yeah, sure. So we've seen elections basically in the two states since the film has come out. Both parties that were in lost, so we now have a new government in both states that it happens. So New South Wales went from a Liberal government, LNP government, which is the more right wing. For those that aren't from Australia and aren't familiar, they're more right leaning. They lost, and Labor got in, which is the slightly more left leaning. Although, to be honest, the two parties are not that distinguishable from each other in a lot of ways. And the opposite happened the opposite happened in Queensland. So Labor lost and Liberal got in Queensland. What we're seeing is it doesn't actually have that big of an effect. It doesn't matter what party you're from and what party's in power. The decision makers behind these programs are still a little bit cowardly and just don't want to do what needs to be done, what all the consultant reports say, what all the scientific reports say, what all the scientific committees say. So it doesn't matter if you're so far, and I hope someone proves me wrong soon, it doesn't matter if you're from the left or the right party in Australia. When you're in that hot seat and you're the fisheries minister or the premier or whatever it is, and you're the one that actually has to pull the trigger on making some updates and some modernizations to this program, you decide it's just not worth the perceived risk. So that's disappointing, but there'll come a time where that just isn't tenable anymore. You can't just ignore science and ignore the environmental impact and ignore the ineffectiveness of this program for any longer. They'll just be forced to make a decision soon. So it's not like one particular election outcome would change the game. Sometimes change is good, but change for the sake of change, I guess, not necessarily that one party that's fully in our favor is going to come into the mix.
Yeah. I think one of the words I picked up on there was the perceived protection that shark nets give, and it is a perception. It's a placebo, really, isn't it? Because it's a very small net in a very big ocean. And as we've spoken about before, it's effectively ringing the dinner bell for anything that's out there.
Absolutely. You've got baited hooks. And then not only do you have baited hooks, you then have things getting hooked on those baited hooks or things tangled in shark nets. So the shark nets aren't baited per se, but once they catch something and there's something dead or dying in there, then in effect they are baited. So you've got this program like not too far from the breakers that is baiting the area, and that's just insane to me. We have a lot of evidence that brings sharks in. That sharks feed on those caught dead and dying animals, it's a placebo, but kind of worse. I don't think there's actually an appropriate word for it, because a placebo just doesn't work, right? Whereas this doesn't work, but has unintended side effects and negative consequences as well. So a mate of mine's a pharmacist. I was like, is there a name for that? A placebo that actually does bad stuff? He couldn't think of one. Anyway, yeah, it's certainly got serious negative aspects to the program. But unless you go and do a deep dive on this topic, watch my doco or do 5 years of research like I've done, you don't get that. Like, you don't get just how absurd this program is. You just see some buoys or some buoys out there, and you assume it's some sort of device or barrier that keeps sharks out there, and you assume it works because you assume the government's competent and doing the right thing. So that's the hard part. Once people understand what the program is, it's very, very, very few that still think it's a good idea. Single-digit %, and usually they're just people who have views really baked in and just want to kill stuff, and it just
and it's excuse me. There's also the the factor that the people that are in government will just, as we've witnessed, ignore pleas to focus on the subject and maybe create change. And I can't even imagine how many emails that you've had back and forth, and very few responses from the government. I've seen, and I get involved with sending emails as they come up with, such as yourself, and then the Australian Marine Conservation Society that do it as well. And it's just your standard return of reply email, and we'll get back to you. And 6 months later, they've still not got back to you. And
the same thing.
I just hope that you're going to disappear and do nothing. Yeah.
Which to be fair, which a lot of people do, And I don't mean to make this sound negative. It's just a fact of life. But a lot of people do watch a documentary or whatever means they learn about this issue through, get fired up about it, take a couple of actions, and then that's it. And I get it. Life moves on as you've got pressures, interest rates are up, food's up, the life is hard, right? I get that people take a few quick actions and then move on. I totally get that, but that's what they're counting on. They're counting on that you send an angry email or sign a petition and then don't do much more. So, and that's really why we've stayed involved in this space post documentary. It became clear that there are other organisations that have been working on this, A, longer than us, and B, are very competent. Don't get me wrong, but they're the minority. They're not the majority. So it became clear to us that someone really needs to stay involved here, grab this by the scruff of the neck, and kind of not give up till it's over, to support those other organisations that are already doing that. Hence why we're still here. Really, I would have loved to have made the documentary and solved the problem and move on with life, but nearly 4 years later here, still talking about it, still fighting the same battle, but we're not going anywhere. We won't kind of give up till it's done.
Good.
Yeah.
Good on you, mate. Good on you. I'll tell you what we haven't touched on as well is the when you sit and think about why a government would be slow, and you think of the concept of protecting their own jobs and wanting to stay in power, and the fear of being that man or woman that says take them out and someone gets chomped. But there's a wider issue to this as well, because the contracts that come from these nets being in the water are bringing in an astronomical turnover of money, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not insignificant, and they're quite cushy contracts, as in compared to if you're a commercial fisherman trying to make a living off that. This is like the plum gig compared to that. You literally go out a couple of times a week, rebait some hooks, check some nets, it's near home. Most of these contractors live in the canals, the canal systems of the Gold Coast or the Sunshine Coast or wherever it might be, in Queensland, probably the same in Sydney. So they walk out their back deck onto their pontoon, they jump in their boat, they do a few hours work checking these programs, checking these pieces of equipment. They drag some dead stuff out, they go dump it offshore, then they go home. It's a plum gig, and it's serious money too. Like, we just looked up the contracts in Queensland, and just for one region, one contractor, it's almost $10 million that they're getting paid over the span of the contract. That's not per year, but over the span of the contract. And then you've got to consider that you've got 5, 6, 7 contractors in a state. Like, some serious money being spent on this thing, and there's some contractors, fishermen, making some serious money off this for not much work compared to other things that they might do for a living. So that's certainly lucrative. And in terms of your point earlier, politicians being maybe fearful of making that change in case someone gets chomped. I mean, the reality is they already are at protected beaches. Like, there's shark bites at beaches with shark nets. There's shark bites at beaches with drum lines. That's already happening. So the reality is different from the perception. However, the media would jump on that narrative, and they won't acknowledge that there was shark bites happening at protected beaches while the net's there. They will just probably crucify whoever's decision it was to remove them, and blame it on that decision, even though that's completely disconnected from reality. There's nearly 100 shark bites between New South Wales and Queensland at beaches, to use their terminology, protected by shark nets and drum lines. So those bites are already happening, but they're fearful of how the media will spin it if it happens post-removal, which, I get that, because the media probably will do that. But there's a way to message it correctly. And I think that involves a mea culpa of sorts, of kind of being like, hey, we've realized this doesn't really work. This is how many bites we've actually had at protected beaches already. It's doing all this harm for absolutely no good. We think it's time to move on. But it's not a realistic approach for politicians, I think. Very unlikely. You need a real backbone to be able to do that.
Yeah, there's not many of them swinging around, is there?
No, not in those halls of power. Definitely not.
No. Was the young lady that got killed last week?
At Bribey last week, yeah. Charlize Zamuda, I believe. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Was that a protected beach?
Yep. 18 drum lines at that beach, and the drum lines
18.
are, if I'm 18, and if I'm remembering correctly, that beach is quite close to North Stradbroke Island, right? And I know the North Stradbroke drum lines well, because if you go out to dive at, I forget the name of the dive site, but you get mantas there, right? But you have to go around the headland to get to them. And when you go past the headland, you go past a bunch of drum lines, and they are so close to the beach. Like, these things are supposed to be 500 meters from shore to lessen that risk of attracting sharks to the shore. But because of the depth profile there's a very quick drop off. Like, it goes deep quick, and they can't set nets or drum lines in deep water. So they have to position them a bit closer at North Straddy, a lot closer actually, to the beach, so that they're setting them in 10 to 12 meters of water. Anyway, they are terrifyingly close to the beach there, like scary close. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe Wurrum, which is Bribey Island, which is where the tragic accident happened, is similar. They're like concerningly close to the beach there, which yeah. Anyway, and we had been, irrespective of how close drum lines are to the beach or not, we'd been asking the government for quite some time. Look, all your data, your spreadsheet shows that there's a lot of, animals getting chomped in half, just the head left after being entangled. Is that bringing sharks closer? Is that, is feeding sharks in the area really a good idea? Is that actually elevating the risk profile? We've been asking that of the government for a long time. We first raised it in a documentary. Since then, I've stayed on their case about it. I asked them about it last year, literally, like, I sent the email by sheer coincidence. I sent the email like a day or two before someone got bitten at a heavily drumline beach at Bargara, which is Bundaberg. And then I'd followed up again. And my most recent follow-up was, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I think, before what happened at Bribey Island. So they just completely ignore me, though, because they know they don't have a good answer to it. They know there's no good answer to, hey, you're baiting beaches and you're feeding sharks at these beaches, as in when they come to predate on things that are already caught. What reassurance can you give us that that's not heightening the risk for beachgoers? And they just don't have an answer to that. So they just don't answer me. And now they look stupid because I'd been raising the alarm for a little while, and there's been 2 incidents at 2 protected beaches in the last year. So, yeah. But if you can tell my frustration coming out, and I sound a bit cynical, I apologize, but I've been dealing with these people for quite some time now, both through the production of the documentary and then since the documentary. So all in all, it's probably, 5 years that I'm involved in this space, not including the interest I had in the space beforehand. So I've dealt with these people so much, and I've seen their absolute BS responses so much, and I've seen what their real agenda is, which is covering their own ass, not actually protecting people at the beach. I've just seen it so much. I am a bit cynical, and if that's coming through, I apologize. But if you'd been doing this for 5 years, as into listeners, not to, well, you too, Matt, you would probably be just as cynical, and it's not unwarranted cynicism. It's genuinely just such an archaic program, and it needs to move with the times, but it won't because no one has a backbone.
That's it. I mean, there's so many ingredients in this mix that it makes it virtually impossible at the moment for it to change because of those people who are stubborn and, without backbone. But even when we're talking about the fishermen that look after the nets and the drum lines, if they were gotten rid of, then there would be the argument that there would be a lot of loss of income for everyone involved. However, they don't have to lose income. They can just reskill and change the direction of, rather than putting a hook in the water, learn how to use a drone and win the contracts that way.
Absolutely. Use some of the money you're saving, the millions and millions of dollars you're going to save every year, to reskill these people and give them a different job. Fine. I mean, they might not want it. They might love being out there on the water and killing stuff. I don't know. But you can at least offer it and have a retraining program and a upskilling program, and give them just different jobs, protect beaches, actually protect beaches in a more modern way, and they can learn that, like, for sure.
Yeah, the dude down at Bondi with his drone up all the time, he's living proof that it works. The footage that he's capturing all the time is marvellous.
Well, and also so I know the stats very well right now, because we're just in discussions with the council there at the moment. I know the stats very well right now around Randwick City Council. So Coogee and Cronulla, I believe it is. And you look at the stats there, you look at how many sharks that the drones have spotted. You look at how many tagged sharks have pinged on the listening station there, which then sends a warning that there's a shark in the area to the Shark Smart app in New South Wales. You look at those stats, and they've gotten hundreds of pings, and they've spotted quite a lot of sharks. And then you look at the shark nets; they haven't caught a target shark there for years. Literally, not a single thing that you're trying to catch has been caught for the last few years, which essentially means you have 100% bycatch rate in that particular council area at those particular beaches. Yet all these other technologies seem to be doing their job quite nicely. So, it's crazy.
And on that, just to clarify as well on the bycatch bit, bycatch for anyone who might be a little bit confused is animals that are caught in the nets that aren't on the targeted list of dangerous sharks, etc., that they want to keep out of the area. So that could be anything from other sharks to loggerhead turtles and dolphins, and well, commonly known globally now is the humpback whales that constantly get caught in them.
Rays, they catch so many rays. I've got all these images that we obtained by Freedom of Information that the contractors take of their catch. Like literal piles of rays, like probably just 10 piled on top of each other. Turtles, dolphins, you name it. It's literally not catching a single thing it's meant to, and just destroying the ocean. They really are blunt instruments, shark nets. Drumlines are a little bit more targeted. They have less bycatch, to be fair. Still a terrible idea, don't get me wrong. But they're a bit less of a blunt instrument. But shark nets are a joke. They're so blunt a tool. Peter Wish-Wilson, who's a Greens senator federally, he ran a whole Senate inquiry on this topic back in 2017. he refers to them as weapons of mass destruction, and I agree. Like, it's all they do. All they do is just kill everything in the area that happens to swim into it, and pray that something might have been a target shark. There hasn't been a target shark in the Sydney nets, the whole Sydney metro area. There hasn't been a target shark caught there for years.
Yeah.
So,
and the unfortunate thing is, it's where we can't see it, can we? So, if it's not seen, then it becomes oblivious in everyday life. If all this was occurring on a high street and everyone saw it every day, then there would be a change for sure.
Yeah, imagine if we had a program to catch and kill, I don't know, dingoes in the middle of Sydney, right? Let's say there was dingoes and they were deemed to be a risk, and we're setting dingo traps in the middle of Sydney. Just imagine that, not catching a dingo for years, but catching dogs, cats, birds,
all the bin chickens.
Like you would be like, what are we doing? Like, what? This is the dumbest thing. This is the dumbest thing that I could possibly dream up. Why are we doing this? But because it's 500 meters offshore and it's very hard to document, it's very hard to get your message out there. They get away with it.
Well, it's actually illegal to go near the nets as well, aren't they, when they're deployed?
In Queensland, it is.
Come with weighty fines.
Yeah, New South Wales.
Jono was telling me. Sorry, I think Jono was telling me it's like either $12,000 or $20,000 fine if you're caught within 20 meters of the nets.
It used to be. That's just for going in the exclusion zone. So that's a new law, or newish law. They put that in place about 2018, 2019, just while we were in production. So that was annoying. That made it very, very much harder for us to get the footage we need to get. But yeah, it was 26,000-ish when the fine first came into place. And then, but those fines go up with inflation. So it's over 30 grand now, just for being within 20 meters, We're not talking about having a dive knife here and cutting something loose or sabotaging equipment. We're talking about being within 20 meters. There's a 30 grand fine. That's how bad they don't want this program seen. Because you used to be able to go up, film whatever you want, as long as you didn't release an animal, you could kind of get away with it. But that was still harmful to them. So now they put this 20-meter radius around them, which is it's a gag order. Fundamentally, it's a gag order. It's to stop you swimming out or me swimming out and documenting bad stuff and then putting that out to the world, and it makes them look terrible. That's all it is. But they don't have that in New South Wales. In New South Wales, it's only illegal to mess with the equipment. Basically, you can still swim up and document stuff in New South Wales. So yeah,
okay, interesting. Well, that's the net update for sure. Well, drum lines as well, obviously. Your thing. How about joining me for an unforgettable dwarf minke whale adventure on Australia's Great Barrier Reef? This July, I will be on board the MV Argo with just 12 lucky guests, alongside 2 phenomenal co-hosts. World-renowned underwater photographer, Nauticam and Maris ambassador Nicholas Remy, founder of the Underwater Club, and local Great Barrier Reef expert Martin Connolly, founder of Scuba IQ. This is a once-in-a-lifetime trip with the incredible wildlife, expert guidance, and epic photography opportunities. Spots really are limited, so check out the details in the show notes and book now before they're gone. Now, I was scrolling a couple of weeks ago now and came across an advert for a new wetty called Shark Stop. And obviously, I'm intrigued, so I click on the link and start looking through the website. And lo and behold, whose face do I see? But Andre's.
A less swollen and bruised version of this face. Yeah.
He's not been beaten up on the website. But that's why we're talking again now, having a nice, conveniently, it's like 3 years on from when we first talked about the shark nets, and it was good to get an update and then introduce the Shark Stop as well. And this is where I hand over the reins to you, buddy, and you can explain where it's all come from and how it comes about.
Yeah, sure. So the documentary essentially led to me being involved in this business. So when the film came out, I was doing a lot of PR, a lot of interviews, a lot of press, that kind of thing. And one journo that I'd done an interview with was like, hey, I just interviewed this fella down from Byron kind of area, Lennox, that has invented this shark bite resistant fabric, like wetsuit fabric. You should talk to him. And by coincidence, I had just seen Dr. Charlie Houvenier's or Flinders University, I can't remember, post something about a bite-resistant neoprene maybe a few weeks earlier, whatever it might have been. So it kind of, I had seen that post and gone, wow, what a great idea. That is really cool. And then by sheer coincidence, this journo is like, hey, I just interviewed this fella. His name's Haydon Burford, the guy that invented this. You should have a chat with him. So I ended up having dinner with Haydon and his wife and some of his kids and so on, and talking about it. Long story short, ended up investing in the business. So he had a fabric. This fabric had been tested in the laboratory by Flinders University, Dr. Charlie Houvenier's and some other scientists. It had also been tested in the field on real, actual white sharks. They bit down on this fabric and shook it around. And the results were really encouraging, like significantly better than normal neoprene, like streets ahead of normal neoprene. So I was interested. But he was basically at the stage of had the fabric, but no wetsuits yet. So I made an investment into that business to help him commercialize it, bring it to market, because a fabric that, you know, is good in theory, but no one can wear to protect themselves is not going to help anyone. I felt this was a product that needed to be brought to market, needed to be, taken into the real world. So yeah, basically invested, helped him commercialize it, helped him run a Kickstarter campaign to launch the business proper, I guess, turn it from an invention into an actual business. And from there, I kind of stayed out of it for a while. But Haydon's was late 70s then. He's 80 now. So at one point, maybe 81. Anyway, at one point, the conversation came of like, there was a lot of challenges through the Kickstarter campaign, I should say too. There was we were working with a manufacturing partner that in hindsight wasn't the best choice, and we had a lot of problems, some upset customers because they were waiting a long time for wetsuits. So there's a lot of challenges, and Haydon was like, hey, can you run this? I've run businesses before. So he was like, hey, can you take this over? This ain't for me. So I jumped in. I kind of spent the next year or so sorting the business out, moving manufacturers, improving the wetsuit design a little bit, iterating it, better quality, things like that. And then here we are. I've kind of fixed the business, I guess, laid the ground. And I'm not having a go at Haydon there. That is just the nature of a startup. And especially when you're doing something that's never been done before in the world, there's going to be problems, right? So I'm not having a dig at all here. But yeah, I spent the next while fixing the business, moving manufacturing, fixing the designs, et cetera. And now kind of we are doing a fundraise at the moment. So we're selling shares. People can invest in the business. We need to raise a capital to then go take us to the next level. Running a business like this, doing something that's never been done before ever, is expensive. You know, it in the early days, it burns cash. So yeah, we're doing a fundraise at the moment to give us a new influx of cash for the next round of R&D. We're going to develop a bunch more wetsuits to maybe develop the fabric a bit more as well. You can always improve on it, both the protection it gives and the flex. It's good now, don't get me wrong, but there's always room for improvement, so on and so forth. So yeah, at the moment we're just doing which is the ad you saw. We're doing a crowdsourced funding is the technical legal term. We're doing a crowdsourced funding round via Birchall, which is a platform that specializes in running these CSF rounds for businesses. And you bring some new investors in. I'm really excited about what that will do in terms of community as well. So not only bring the investors in for their money, but essentially having like 100 or 1,000 ambassadors out there that actually have a slice, have a stake in this too. And then, I want to get on with growing this and turning it into what it can be, which is, I think, a revolutionary, game-changing product. We've done proof of concept now. Now it's time to grow.
And so Haydon came up with this material. Are you allowed to share how he came up with this material, how he designed it, or is it sneaky beaky secret?
We can talk about it in broad strokes for sure. So the idea basically hit him. The idea hit him when he was sitting at the kitchen table with his partner Liz, and there had been a cluster of shark bites in that Lennox area. This is back like 2017-ish. I'm not sure if you recall, but it really rocked the community. And they were both sitting there, and I don't know exactly how the conversation went. Obviously, I wasn't there, but something to the effect of, "Hey, you know those Kevlar motorcycle pants? Why isn't there like a wetsuit version of that? Why can't we protect people from shark bite. And that was kind of the light bulb moment. And from there was heaps of like testing and prototyping and trying different fabrics. Kevlar, it was deemed was no good. It's not that good in water. It's not that flexible. Although it does have good puncture resistance and it's very strong. They use it in bulletproof vests, for example. It wasn't really suitable for a wetsuit application. So I was just trying, eventually got to something that seemed good. And that's when Flinders University was planning to do some testing. So I got into the testing. In terms of the actual technicality of it, I'll just give the 60-second version. So most wetsuits that you wear will have a layer of what they call laminate on the inside and the outside of the actual neoprene, of the actual rubber itself. So the outside, the laminate might be what you've got camo printed on or color printed on if you've got a colored wetsuit. It's a very, very, very thin layer. No protection at all, obviously. It's just there to take color and to protect the neoprene a little bit, because you can rip rubber, cut rubber with like a fingernail or a sharp edge very easily. And on the inside, you might be familiar with laminates maybe being fleece or something like that. If you've got a 5mm or a 7mm wetsuit that's maybe got a bit of fleece lining, that's the laminate. So essentially the approach was get rid of both those pieces of laminate and replace them with basically two layers of, one on the inside, one on the outside, of a really, really, really strong but still flexible, this is the challenge, textile. Like do basically a bite-proof textile that goes either side of the neoprene. So that's a long and short version. That's what it is. It's puncture-proof, so designed to stop teeth getting through if there is a bite, but it's also cut and tear resistant as well, meaning if there is a little bit of puncture from a shark tooth going in and then the shark shakes, that serrated tooth won't completely open the fabric up, because it's also cut resistant and tear resistant, like it would obviously in neoprene. Neoprene, I mean, teeth are going to go through like a hot knife through butter in the first place, and then if that shark shakes, like it's the wetsuit doesn't stand a chance, and you're right under that. So the idea is to stop sharks getting through to the arteries, the main arteries in the arms and legs, because that's what people die from in shark bite incidences is blood loss. So if we can stop teeth getting through to the main arteries, and we can stop catastrophic blood loss and hemorrhagic shock, can hopefully save lives.
No, it's a fantastic concept. And with the testing that Flinders University has done, I think you mentioned previously, was done with Andrew Fox on the Rodney Fox team down in South Australia. Can you go into or tell us about how they did the testing down there?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been 2 batches of testing now. So after I invested, there had only been 1, but there's now been a second batch of testing. So basically, again, without getting too technical, I'm sure we can link maybe the scientific paper in the show notes or something like that, or even just on our website, there's a science page that explains all this. So I won't get too technical here, or might put people to sleep, but they can go and look for more information. So in short, we don't test it on a mannequin. Because to get a shark to bite, you need to bait something. You need to put blood and guts and chum in something in order to get a shark to bite and do your test bites. You don't want to bait a human-shaped object. That no scientist would want to do that. Coastal communities would get pissed off at that. It's just not a good idea, because you may then habituate that shark. It would probably take multiple exposures to habituate a shark, but still, the point is you don't want to risk potentially habituating a shark to a human-shaped object being food. So they're not tested on mannequins. They are tested on basically on a giant rectangle, a pillow, I guess would be the right way to describe it. And in that pillow for the first batch of testing was a pressure plate. So you could measure bite force and quantify that, and obviously some sort of stimuli to get the shark involved. Interested. Yeah. So that's the first batch of testing, and the fabric far exceeded the neoprene. The second batch of testing, I believe they did away with the pressure plate, and they instead put a board in there with foam on top of the board, basically to resemble soft tissue, skin and soft tissue, and then again a pillow of our fabric over the top. So that time, rather than measuring bite force, they measured the damage to the foam underneath the fabric to basically see how well it would protect a material that is somewhat soft tissue like. And again, that one's been done on white sharks and tiger sharks. There's also plans for bull sharks as well, but that's not published yet. So they're still going through the process of peer review and publishing in a scientific journal. So that one we won't be able to link in the show notes. But long story short, far exceeds neoprene in terms of protective, as you would expect. Neoprene is going to give you close to zero protection. Far exceeds neoprene. And in terms of the new one, the second batch of testing, where they're measuring what sort of damage might be still coming through, or conversely eliminated from something that resembles skin and soft tissue, it completely eliminated like serious and catastrophic damage. Completely. Again, read the full paper for the full results because there's more nuance to it than that. But it was really good at that. There is still minor damage that comes through, but we're talking about hopefully, lacerations. If the bite force is strong, it could be a broken bone, sure. But the catastrophic damage is what we're trying to avoid. You don't want a shark getting all the way to your femoral artery if it's your leg and bleeding out. That's what kills people. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the science write-up now. I can't believe I missed this, to be honest.
Like
I'll have a really good look.
I remember just that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say the bite force of what it can withstand it impresses people sometimes. So I believe about the median was about 900 newtons that this from a single tooth. 900 newtons is what our fabric can withstand, with some results up near 1200 newtons. So now bite force is, people see that and then they see, they go and Google the bite force of a great white shark or something. And I think the number that pops up on Google is maybe 4,000 newtons or something. People who want to be cynical, because there's always some, go, it's like, but their bite force is higher than what it takes to get through. But what you need to understand is that 4,000 newton or whatever the number is, bite force, is distributed across however many teeth there are, how many teeth are making contact. So, as long as more than 4 or 5 teeth are making contact, the protection's looking good as being able to hold up. So, it's some pretty incredible numbers and some pretty impressive fabric. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a rare day when there's a shark bite with a single tooth, isn't there?
It was some sort of hillbilly shark or something. It's only got one tooth. It's going to be distributed across. Well, depends how much of the jaw is making contact. To be honest, if it's the whole jaw, it's going to be distributed across a lot of teeth. But again, even if a tooth does make its way through, this is the part to reiterate. And then the shark is being aggressive with you, ragdolling you, shaking you, which is how they act with prey, with certain sharks anyway. The damage to the fabric will stay isolated to the tip of that tooth coming through, as opposed to completely opening the whole thing up like a can opener. So, it's impressive stuff. It's impressive stuff. It doesn't turn you into Iron Man. It doesn't turn you into Superman. It doesn't mean you can go out there and poke a great white in the gills and agitate it and then stick your leg in its mouth and you're going to walk away without even needing a Band-Aid. That's not what the product is. The product is to reduce the catastrophic damage, catastrophic bleeding, which is what will kill you in a shark bite most of the time. Yeah.
No, impressive, man. And I just had a quick look on the website, obviously. And we've got, I think the first thing we should talk about, actually, before we look at the different types of wetties, is the price point. A lot of people are going to jump at a price point and go, ooh, that's a lot of pennies. But when you think about what it's doing, it's not actually a lot of pennies, is it?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in this no man's land, I feel, at the moment on price point, where we're more than a premium wetty. Not that much more, but more than a premium wetty, but way less than chainmail or something that other people who are intentionally interacting with sharks might be wearing. So I do feel we're a little bit in this no man's land. I would love, don't hold me to this because there's a million variables that will go into this, but I'd love to get it down into premium wetty price point territory. That's what I'd love to achieve. That some of that will come with, first of all, it's just very expensive fabric. This miracle textile that we use as our laminate basically is super expensive, right? Then you got to turn it into a wetsuit. Now that's also super expensive because by design, this fabric is like near on impossible to cut and near on impossible to sew and near on impossible to work with because it's so tough. So you've got the cost of the textile being insanely high, like orders of magnitude more than normal laminate that you have on normal wetsuits. Then these wetsuits take longer to make by orders of magnitude because of difficulty in cutting, sewing, blah, blah, blah. So you've kind of got compounding costs there that make our cost to make one of these like pretty damn high. To be honest, our margins, right now, I'd love them to be higher, but I don't want to push the price point any higher. So really, with volume, I'm hoping some of this might change. At the moment, when we do a manufacturing run, we do 200 wetsuits. That's the MOQ. That's the minimum order quantity with our current manufacturer. We do 200 wetsuits. I'm hopeful that when we grow and we're doing 2,000 wetsuits at a time or whatever number, that the cost will come down because it's obviously a lot easier to make. Instead of making 50 yards of this bite-resistant textile, you make 500 yards. That should bring the cost down. Instead of making 200 wetsuits and setting a whole production line up and just making 200 of them, you're spitting out 2,000. That should bring the cost down. Price point is, I'd love it to be lower, but it is what it is now. We're certainly not making bank off that. But for people who have sharks on the brain or are genuinely in very sharky areas, I think it's a price point that you can definitely justify, taking
sure.
people's, not taking people's personal financial situations into account, but it's not something that is completely unaffordable to the average Aussie, put it that way.
Yeah. And just on the on that price point as well, is that you have the worn wear system as well. Should we delve into that one a little bit as well?
Yeah, the worn wear system, great pickup. So it's an idea we, let's say, borrowed off Patagonia. I don't think they mind us. I don't think they mind us using it. Other brands do it too. It's just Patagonia where I saw it first, because they're all about environment and minimizing waste. So I don't think they mind. But basically, it's a system of if something gets returned, ill-fitting or whatever it might be, that can't be sold as a new product again, right? So traditionally, often that will go to landfill. And there's a huge amount of waste. Even someone that's, just wants to move on from that wetsuit they've got, get another one maybe, like they've used it a few times but want to get rid of it, that would have to be sold in the secondhand market, something like that. So the worn wear system basically is us accepting returns of new or as new suits and reselling them at a discounted price. So it reduces waste, which is fantastic. It gets maybe people into our product who can't afford that price tag we were just talking about. It just has so many upsides. It's a pretty good system. So have a look on worn wear. We don't have every size and every design, obviously, because it depends on what we might have had returned or whatever the case may be. But if you're lucky enough to find the design you want and the size you want, in worn wear, it's a great way to get in at a cheaper price.
Yeah, and even if your size isn't available at the time, you can always message the company and leave your name and your size that you're waiting for, and as and when one comes up on the radar, they can ping you an email and let you know.
Yeah, we might even do a formal waiting list type thing where you can fill out a form and say, hey, I'd like this size and style, and when we have one come in, then we can contact you straight away. But yeah, for now, just email us if that's something you want, but we might build a little bit more of a sleeker system than that soon.
Yeah, no, happy days, man. And so find the people that are interested in possibly wanting to invest in shark stock, that's all done through the Burchell website, isn't it?
It's all done through the Burchell website. So they have an Australian Financial Services license. They're basically licensed to run this kind of fundraising round. They act as an intermediary. So if you go to Burchell, it's BIRCHAL. You go to the Burchell website and you'll find us on there as one of their active campaigns. There's a whole bunch of, obviously you want to do your due diligence before making any sort of investment decisions. So we have an offer document on there that gives you the full picture of the business as to where we're at, financials, everything basically. It's a very transparent approach. You have to be very transparent to do a raise like this, obviously for to protect consumers. So the offer documents on there, our constitution is on there, as in company constitution is on there. Go check it out, have a look. If you're interested in something like this, it'll be open till the, I believe, 21st of Feb. So yeah, go check it out. But it's all through Birchall, and you can invest. I think as little as $250. I think is the minimum.
Is that all?
And and then the maximum is. So if you want to do over $10,000, you need to be what's called a sophisticated investor. That's a legal term. Basically, you need to meet certain criteria to prove that you're a sophisticated investor. If you want to do over 10 grand, but Birchall will explain all that to you.
Yeah. It surprises me, someone wants to invest in something, but you've got to prove that you can invest because you're sophisticated.
But you've got the cash. Yeah. Shouldn't the cash be proof that, anyway, yeah. I just went through this process actually because Birchall was running another raise. Quick tangent. Birchall was running another raise for this solar company that are doing solar tiles. So they basically fit seamlessly into your tiled roof. I wanted to invest in that, and the whole sophisticated investor thing annoyed me at that point. It's seems like a little bit of bureaucracy that doesn't need to be there. It is a legislative thing, not a Birchall thing. So I'm not criticizing Birchall here, but it's just you basically get a certificate from your accountant to say you earn over either this amount of money or you hold assets over this amount of money or whatever it is. There's a bunch of criteria. Accountant can write your certificate, but it seems weird to me. Like, why do I have if I have the money and I want to invest it, why do I have to prove that? Yeah, anyway, here's what it is.
Yeah. Anyway, fingers crossed we'll get someone or many people come along and want to invest in the Shark Stock wetsuits. Superb. Okay, mate. Have we covered everything?
I think we have. We've covered everything I wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about in our pre-chats, I think. So yeah, that's pretty much I think so.
Happy days. All right, mate. Well, I'll let you get back to that. What looks like a gorgeous backdrop behind you, and get on with your day. I'm going to do some editing. More editing.
Awesome. Thanks for. I hope I didn't waffle too much. I hope there's not too much editing for you to do. But fantastic. No, it was good to chat. It was good to catch up. We might see you around at either in your neck of the woods or maybe at a diving show or something like that.
In fact, because you're going to be down at Bondi, aren't you, in March?
Ocean Lovers Festival, potentially for Envoy for the campaign. We are definitely there. We have a booth confirmed, but for Shark Stop, we're still a maybe. I just emailed them the other day to see if there's a booth still available. So we may be there for Shark Stop as well. I'm not too sure, might see you there. If not, you messaged me before when we were setting this up. You asked about ADEX Singapore too, right? Which I have lived in Singapore for the last 5 years. I still haven't been to an ADEX there, but we'll see each other around the traps. And anyone else that was listening too, if you see us somewhere, A, would love to have you invest if you believe in the product, but B, if you just see us around the traps, come say good day.
Happy days. Awesome sauce. Okay, thank you very much for listening, folks, and bye for now.